The medical scanner beeped 3 times in rapid succession, and Dr. Kalara felt her antennae twitch with concern. She stared at the holographic display floating above her desk, mandibles clicking softly as she processed the numbers. Something had to be wrong with the equipment. "Nurse Pellix, did you calibrate the scanners this morning?" she called out, her forearms gesturing at the readouts with growing agitation. The amphibious Frelian poked his translucent head around the corner, large eyes blinking nervously. "Yes, doctor. Twice, actually. All systems are functioning within normal parameters." Dr. Kalara turned back to look at her patient, who sat on the examination platform, swinging his legs like a youngling waiting for dessert. The human male appeared completely unconcerned, scrolling through something on his datapad with a faint smile on his face. "Mr. Briggs," she said carefully, "when did you last experience chest pain or difficulty breathing?" Owen looked up from his device, eyebrows raised. "Chest pain? Never had any. Why, is something wrong?" "Your cardiovascular readings are extremely elevated," Dr. Kalara explained, pulling up the data with 2 hands while her other 2 gestured expressively. "Your heart rate, blood pressure, oxygen consumption levels, they all indicate severe physiological stress. You should be experiencing significant discomfort." Owen glanced at the numbers and shrugged. "That all looks pretty normal to me. Document. Maybe a bit on the low side, actually. I did jog here from the maintenance sector." Dr. Kalara's compound eyes widened. "You engaged in vigorous physical activity before a medical examination? That would be considered extremely dangerous for most species." "It was just a light jog," Owen said, looking genuinely confused by her reaction. "Maybe 15 minutes? The lifts were backed up, and I figured I could use the exercise." The doctor felt a strange sensation in her thorax that she recognized as anxiety. In her 20 years of medical practice across dozens of species, she had never encountered readings quite like these. She made a note in her file and decided to proceed with the standard examination protocols, though nothing about this felt standard. "Please remove your upper garments so I can conduct a physical assessment," she instructed. Owen complied, pulling off his maintenance uniform shirt. Dr. Kalara approached with her medical scanner, one of her hands holding the device while the others took notes. As she moved the scanner across his torso, new data began flooding her display. Bone density 3 times higher than Venthrani standards. Muscle fiber composition indicating extreme tensile strength. A skeletal structure that seemed designed to absorb tremendous impact forces. And the scars, so many scars, crisscrossing his skin in thin white lines. "Mr. Briggs," she said slowly, "your body shows evidence of significant historical trauma. Multiple healed fractures in your ribs, stress fractures in both legs, and what appears to be repeated soft tissue damage across your shoulders and back." "Oh yeah," Owen said casually, glancing down at himself. "Comes with the job, you know. Maintenance work can get pretty rough sometimes." Dr. Kalara set down her scanner with all 4 hands, a gesture that among her people indicated serious concern. "Mr. Briggs, workplace injuries of this severity should have been reported to station medical immediately. These fractures could have caused permanent damage or even death if left untreated." Owen's face showed genuine surprise now. "Death? From a couple cracked ribs?" "Doc, I just wrapped them up and took it easy for a few weeks. They healed fine." "You wrapped them yourself?" Dr. Kalara could feel her voice rising in pitch, a sign of distress among Venthrani. "Without proper medical intervention? Without cellular regeneration therapy or bone fusing?" "Well, yeah," Owen said. "I mean, ribs heal on their own pretty well. Humans have been dealing with broken bones since way before we had fancy medical tech. Our bodies are pretty good at fixing themselves." Nurse Pellix had moved closer, listening to the conversation with growing alarm. His skin had taken on a pale blue tinge, indicating fear to Dr. Kalara pulled up Owen's complete medical history on her larger display terminal. 5 years of service on Station Harmony, 7, and his file was filled with incident reports. A concussion from emergency hull repairs during a meteor strike. Lacerations from a cargo container accident. Chemical burns from a coolant system failure. Severe bruising from a gravity generator malfunction. Each injury would have hospitalized most species for weeks. Owen's longest medical leave had been 4 days. How are you still alive? Dr. Kalara whispered, more to herself than to Owen. What do you mean? Owen asked, leaning forward with interest. Is there something actually wrong with me? Dr. Kalara realized she needed to conduct a deeper scan. Something about human biology was fundamentally different from every other species she had studied, and she needed to understand it before she could properly treat this patient or any other human on the station. Mr. Briggs, I need to perform a comprehensive biological scan, she said, working to keep her voice professional despite her growing concern. It will take approximately 30 minutes and requires you to remain still inside the scanning chamber. Owen nodded agreeably. Sure, no problem. Can I watch the gravity ball highlights on my datapad while I'm in there? The semifinals were last night, and I missed them. Dr. Kalara stared at him. Here was a being whose body bore the marks of what should have been career-ending injuries, whose vital signs would send any other species into emergency care, asking if he could watch sports entertainment during a medical scan. Yes, she said faintly. You may watch your highlights. As Owen settled into the scanning chamber, still smiling, Dr. Kalara prepared her equipment with trembling hands. 30 minutes later, when the results appeared on her screen, she had to sit down. Nurse Pellix looked at the data, and his skin went completely transparent with shock. The scan showed 3 additional healed fractures Owen had apparently forgotten to mention, 2 separate instances of concussion damage that had somehow repaired themselves, and scar tissue in his lungs from what must have been a serious respiratory injury. Owen emerged from the scanner, stretching his arms over his head. All done. How'd I do, Doc? Dr. Kalara's mandibles trembled as she looked at him. Mr. Briggs, what kind of world did you evolve on? Security Chief Drellam's crystalline form refracted the medical bays, lighting into rainbow patterns across the walls as he materialized through the doorway. His geometric structure shifted colors from calm blue to concerned amber as he reviewed the datapad Dr. Kalara had thrust into his hands. You summoned me for a workplace safety violation. Drellam's voice resonated like wind chimes in a storm. Doctor, I have 3 cargo disputes and a diplomatic incident to resolve today. This is not a simple violation, Dr. Kalara insisted, gesturing toward Owen, who sat patiently on the exam table, looking bewildered. This human has sustained catastrophic injuries that suggest either systematic abuse or criminally negligent working conditions. Look at these scans. Owen raised his hand like a student seeking permission to speak. A doc? I really don't think anyone's abusing me. The maintenance crew is great. We go out for drinks every 5th day. Dr. Kalara ignored him, pulling up holographic images of Owen's skeletal system. 3 months ago, multiple rib fractures. The incident report says he caught a falling cargo container. Yeah, that was a close one, Owen admitted. The anti-grav coupling failed, and the container started dropping toward Riley, one of the Perothian technicians. I managed to redirect it, but it clipped me pretty good on the way down. Drellam's crystalline structure flickered with confusion. You redirected a falling cargo container? Those weigh several hundred kilograms. It was only about 200 kilos, Owen said. And I didn't lift it or anything, just pushed it sideways so it wouldn't crush Riley. Basic physics, really. Dr. Kalara felt her thorax constrict. Basic physics would dictate that such an impact should have killed you. Owen scratched his head, messing up his hair. I mean, it hurt. Definitely hurt. But Riley's exoskeleton wouldn't have handled that hit at all. Those Perothian shells look tough, but they're actually pretty fragile under direct impact. I figured I had the better chance of walking away from it. Walking away. Dr. Kalara's voice climbed another octave. You had 4 fractured ribs, right? But I could still breathe and move around. Riley would have been shattered. Owen spoke as if this logic was completely self-evident. Security Chief Drellam accessed his own records, his form shifting through various shades of amber and red. Mr. Briggs, your file shows 17 commendations for bravery and quick thinking in emergency situations over the past 5 years. You have personally prevented 6 major accidents and saved the lives of 23 crew members. Has it been that many? Owen looked genuinely surprised. I guess I never counted. You just do what needs doing, you know. Dr. Kalara pulled up another file. 4 months ago, concussion and cervical strain. The report indicates you were performing emergency repairs to a pressure seal during a micrometeor strike. You were struck by debris. That one was bad timing, Owen acknowledged. I almost had the seal fixed when a chunk of the hull plating came loose. Got me right in the head. Saw stars for a minute there. Saw stars. Nurse Pellix whispered from behind a medical cabinet. You lost consciousness from cranial impact and continued working. Well, I didn't lose consciousness, Owen corrected. Just got my bell rung pretty good. The seal needed finishing or the whole sector would have decompressed. Seemed more important than a headache. Drellum scrolled through more reports, his crystalline body now flickering between colors too rapidly to track. Lacerations from coolant line repair. Burns from electrical fire suppression. Crush injuries from equipment malfunction. Mr. Briggs, you have been injured more times than our entire security force combined. I work in maintenance, Owen said reasonably. Stuff breaks, sometimes in dangerous ways. That's kind of the whole job. Dr. Kalara accessed the medical files of other humans on the station. To her horror, she found similar patterns. Every human had injury histories that would be considered extraordinary for any other species. Broken bones, tissue damage, concussions, all treated as minor inconveniences. She pulled up personnel records for the human crew. Out of 48 humans on Station Harmony, 32 had volunteered for hazardous duty positions. They made up 12% of the station's population, but filled 67% of emergency response roles. This cannot be normal, Dr. Kalara said, though her certainty was wavering. No species volunteers for danger at this rate. Owen shifted uncomfortably on the exam table. Look, Doc, I appreciate the concern, but this is just how humans are. We evolved on a planet that was actively trying to kill us most of the time. Weather, predators, diseases, you name it. We got good at dealing with injury because we had to. What kind of death world produces beings like you? Dr. Kalara asked. Owen pulled up images on his datapad, projecting them onto the medical bay's wall display. Dr. Kalara and the others watched in growing horror as he showed them Earth. Massive storms that could level entire regions. Temperature variations that ranged from freezing to boiling. Predators with claws and teeth designed for killing. Microscopic organisms that invaded bodies and had to be constantly fought by internal defense systems. That's where you come from. Nurse Pellix's voice was barely a whisper. Yeah, it's pretty rough, Owen admitted. But it's home. You get used to it. You get used to it, Dr. Kalara repeated numbly. Owen showed them more images. Humans climbing sheer rock faces for recreation. Humans deliberately throwing themselves from aircraft with fabric parachutes. Humans engaging in full-contact sports where injury was expected and accepted as part of the activity. You hurt yourselves for fun. Drellum's crystalline form had settled into a pale, shocked white. Well, when you put it that way, it sounds weird, Owen said. We call it challenging ourselves. Building character. Besides, a little pain is how you know you're getting stronger. Dr. Kalara sat down heavily in her chair, all four arms hanging limply at her sides. A little pain is how you know you're getting stronger, she repeated. The concept was utterly alien to her species, who avoided physical stress at all costs. The medical bay's alarm suddenly blared, red lights flashing along the walls. Commander Nethrus's voice came through the intercom, sharp with urgency. Medical emergency, Sector 12. Toxic coolant leak. Multiple casualties. All medical personnel report immediately. Owen was already on his feet, pulling his uniform shirt back on. I know that system. I can help with the containment. Dr. Kalara stood, grabbing her emergency medical kit. Mr. Briggs, you are not cleared for duty. Your examination is incomplete. Owen was already heading for the door. People are hurt. Document. We can finish my checkup later. As he jogged out of the medical bay, Dr. Kalara realized with growing dread that she had no idea how to treat humans in an actual emergency. All her training and experience suddenly felt inadequate. She grabbed her equipment and followed, Nurse Pellix trembling beside her. They had no choice but to learn. The medical bay filled with casualties faster than Dr. Kalara could process them. A Frelian engineer clutched his throat, gasping for air through damaged respiratory membranes. Two Venthrani technicians lay on stretchers, their exoskeletons showing chemical burn patterns. A Caltharian administrator sobbed, all 6 of her eye stalks weeping from chemical irritation. Nurse Pellix rushed between patients with medication and breathing apparatus, his movements jerky with fear. The coolant leak had affected 17 crew members so far, and the contaminated sector was still not contained, a doctor. Kalara was treating a young Perothian when a medical bay doors burst open. She turned to see Lucy Park, one of the human hazmat specialists, carrying 2 unconscious aliens in her arms. Another human followed behind her with 3 more victims on a motorized stretcher. What stopped Dr. Kalara cold was that Lucy was coughing violently, her face flushed red, tears streaming from her eyes. The human had clearly been exposed to the toxic coolant. "Set them down here," Dr. Kalara commanded, pointing to 2 empty beds. "Nurse, get her breathing assistance immediately." Lucy deposited her burdens gently and waved off the breathing mask Pellix tried to place over her face. "I'm fine, doc. Just got some fumes in my lungs. These folks need help first." "You are clearly not fine," Dr. Kalara snapped, running her scanner over Lucy. The readings made her antennae droop with shock. Severe respiratory irritation, chemical burns in the throat and lungs, elevated stress hormones. "How long were you in the contaminated zone?" "Maybe 15 minutes. Lucy coughed again, wiping her eyes. "Could have been 20. Hard to tell when you're focused on getting people out." 15 minutes. Dr. Kalara stared at her. "The safety limit for that coolant is 90 seconds with full protective gear." "How are you conscious?" Lucy shrugged, then grimaced as the movement clearly hurt. "My respirator gave out after about 10 minutes, so I just held my breath for the last few trips. Human lungs are pretty good at working with low oxygen when we need to." Before Dr. Kalara could respond, Owen appeared in the doorway. His maintenance uniform was soaked with sweat and stained with the bright blue coolant. Behind him, Security Chief Drellum's crystalline form glowed an alarmed red. "Doc, we need people who can work in that environment," Owen said without preamble. "The containment team can't get close enough with their suits. The coolant is eating through the protective layers too fast." "Absolutely not," Dr. Kalara said firmly. "The toxicity levels would kill most species within minutes." "Good thing we're not most species," Lucy said, her voice hoarse but determined. "Owen's right. We can handle higher exposure than anyone else on this station." Dr. Kalara looked between the 2 humans, her medical training warring with the evidence in front of her. Lucy had survived 15 minutes of exposure that should have been fatal. Owen stood before her, showing no signs of distress despite obvious chemical contact. "Your immune systems, your cellular repair mechanisms," Dr. Kalara began, accessing her recent scans of Owen. "The documentation suggests humans can resist toxins more effectively than other species, but this is beyond theoretical limits. Earth has a lot of toxic stuff," Owen explained. "Plants, animals, fungi, bacteria. We evolved to deal with poison as part of daily life. Our livers and kidneys are basically heavy-duty filtration systems. How long can you function in that environment?" Dr. Kalara demanded. Owen and Lucy exchanged glances. "Honestly," Owen said, "we don't know. Never tested it like this. But we heal fast, and we can push through the pain. People are still trapped in there. Document." The medical scanner beeped urgently from one of the Frelian patients. Dr. Kalara made a split-second decision that went against every instinct she had. "Go," she said, "but I am monitoring your vital signs remotely. If either of you drops below critical thresholds, you evacuate immediately." Owen and Lucy nodded and headed back towards Sector 12. Dr. Kalara pulled up their biometric feeds on her main display, watching in real time as they entered the contaminated zone. For 2 hours, she watched their bodies absorb punishment that should have killed them. Heart rates elevated but steady. Respiratory function declining but still operational. Cell damage accumulating in their tissues while simultaneously being repaired by their aggressive immune systems. They pulled out 12 more victims. They manually sealed 3 coolant breaches while exposed to direct chemical contact. They worked with a focus that bordered on supernatural, their bodies screaming distress signals while their minds remained clear and purposeful. Nurse Pelix stood beside Dr. Kalara, watching the displays with his translucent skin cycling through every color of fear. "They should be dead," he whispered. "Why aren't they dead?" Dr. Kalara had no answer. She watched Owen lift a fallen support beam off a trapped Keltharian technician, the effort causing his muscle fibers to tear microscopically, tearing again, healing again in an endless cycle of damage and repair. Finally, after what felt like days but was only 2 hours, Owen appeared in the medical bay carrying the last victim. His skin showed visible chemical burns, angry red patches across his arms and neck. His breathing was labored and irregular. Blood oxygen levels on her scanner had dropped to dangerous levels. Dr. Kalara rushed forward with a medical bed, emergency treatments ready. Owen set down the unconscious Perothian carefully, making sure the being was stable before he allowed himself to lean against the wall. "Mr. Briggs, sit down immediately," Dr. Kalara commanded. "You need extensive treatment." Owen looked at her, his face showing the first real signs of exhaustion she had seen. His skin was pale under the burns, sweat running down his temples. He should have been in agony. Then he smiled. Actually smiled. He gave her a thumbs-up gesture she had learned meant approval or success in human culture. Just another Tuesday document. He walked himself to an empty medical bed, sat down, and promptly passed out. Dr. Kalara stood frozen, staring at the unconscious human who had just survived what should have been completely unsurvivable. Around her, other humans were checking in for treatment, their injuries severe, but their spirits somehow unbroken. They joked with each other while Nurse Pelix administered medications with trembling hands. Lucy winked at Dr. Kalara, her voice raspy but cheerful. "We're tougher than we look," document. As Dr. Kalara began the long process of treating the human rescue team, a realization crystallized in her mind. These beings were not just physically different. They were fundamentally, incomprehensibly different from every other species she had encountered. They did not just survive. They thrived in conditions that would break anyone else, and they did it with a smile. 3 days after the coolant incident, Dr. Kalara sat in her office, surrounded by holographic displays, each showing different aspects of human biology and behavior. She had slept maybe 6 hours total since the emergency, unable to stop analyzing the data. The medical journal article she was writing refused to come together because every conclusion she drew seemed impossible. A soft chiming announced a visitor. Dr. Forthix materialized through her doorway, his gaseous form contained within an elegant environmental suit that glowed softly yellow. "I received your rather frantic message," Dr. Forthix said, his voice emanating from speakers in his suit. "You claim to have discovered something that would revolutionize xenobiology. Given your typically cautious nature, I was intrigued." Dr. Kalara gestured at her displays with all 4 arms. "Look at this data and tell me I'm losing my mind." Dr. Forthix drifted closer, his gaseous form swirling with interest as he reviewed the information. Minutes passed in silence. Then, "This cannot be accurate. These stress tolerances would require cellular structures that defy known biochemistry. I have verified the equipment 17 times," Dr. Kalara said. "I have cross-referenced with medical data from 4 other stations. The results are consistent. Humans are impossibly resilient." Dr. Forthix's suit flickered through several colors, indicating deep thought. "I would like to observe these humans directly. Documentation can be flawed or misinterpreted. Direct observation eliminates ambiguity." An hour later, they stood outside the station's recreational facility, watching through an observation window. Inside, a dozen humans engaged in what they called working out. Owen was among them, apparently fully recovered from his near-fatal chemical exposure. "They are deliberately damaging their own musculature," Dr. Forthix observed, his scientific detachment barely masking his horror. "That human is lifting approximately twice her own body weight repeatedly. The structural strain should cause catastrophic failure." Dr. Kalara watched Lucy bench press a bar loaded with weights, her face showing effort but not pain or fear. According to their physiology data, This micro damage is how they increase strength. The muscle fibers tear slightly, then repair themselves stronger than before. That is barbaric, Dr. Forthix said flatly. Most species would consider this self-harm. A young human male began running on a treadmill, gradually increasing the speed until he was sprinting at a pace that would exhaust most species within seconds. He maintained it for 20 minutes, his body glistening with sweat, before slowing to a walk. Observe his cardiovascular response, Dr. Kalara said, showing Dr. Forthix her scanner readings. Heart rate elevated to what we would consider crisis levels. Yet his expression suggests satisfaction, not distress. Owen noticed them watching and waved cheerfully, then jogged over to the observation window. His casual demeanor after such intense activity seemed impossible. "Hey, Doc," he called through the communication panel. "Checking up on me? I told you I was fine." Dr. Forthix activated his own communicator. "Mr. Briggs, would you consent to participate in a comparative stress response study? We would expose you to simulated emergency scenarios and measure your physiological reactions." "Sure." Owen agreed immediately. "Sounds interesting. When do we start?" 2 hours later, Owen sat in a testing chamber while Dr. Kalara and Dr. Forthix monitored from the control room. They began with a simple scenario, a holographic fire blocking an exit, requiring the subject to find an alternative escape route. Most species showed immediate panic responses: elevated stress hormones, decision paralysis, flight instinct. Owen simply looked around, identified the air vent, and calmly explained how he would remove the cover and crawl through. They increased the intensity. Multiple hazards, time pressure, simulated injuries. Owen's heart rate increased, yes, but his cognitive function remained sharp. He prioritized tasks, made quick decisions, and never froze. "This is remarkable," Dr. Forthix said. His fear response does not override his rational thinking. The stress enhances his focus rather than diminishing it. "Humans call it adrenaline," Dr. Kalara explained. Their bodies flood with performance-enhancing hormones during danger. It is a survival adaptation. They were preparing the next scenario when an actual alarm sounded. Not in the test chamber, but in the adjacent corridor. An electrical fire, small but spreading. Owen immediately stood up in the test chamber. "That's real. I can smell it through the ventilation." Before either doctor could respond, Owen had disabled the safety locks and exited the chamber. By the time they reached the corridor, he was already there with a fire suppression unit, calmly extinguishing the flames while other crew members evacuated. Dr. Forthix's gaseous form swirled rapidly in his suit. He moved toward the danger, not away from it. This violates basic survival instinct. Dr. Kalara watched Owen check the corridor for remaining hot spots, his movements efficient and practiced. Not for humans. They evolved as pack hunters and community defenders. Their instinct is to protect the group, even at personal risk. Later that evening, Dr. Kalara interviewed Mira Wells, the station's human xenoanthropologist, trying to understand the psychological basis for what she had observed. "We call it persistence," Mira explained, sitting comfortably in Dr. Kalara's office. "Humans are not the strongest or fastest species on Earth. We survive by refusing to quit. We would chase prey animals for days until they collapsed from exhaustion. We would take injuries that would stop other predators and just keep going. But why?" Dr. Kalara asked. "What evolutionary advantage justifies such extreme adaptations?" Mira pulled up images of Earth's prehistory. Our planet went through dramatic climate changes. Ice ages, droughts, super predators. Species that couldn't adapt died out. Humans specialized in being generalists. We could survive anywhere, eat almost anything, and recover from nearly any injury. We had to, or we would have gone extinct. Dr. Kalara studied the images of early humans, seeing the same determined expressions she recognized in Owen and Lucy. "You evolved to endure." "More than that," Mira said. "We evolved to protect our communities while enduring. A human alone might give up when injured, but a human protecting their family or tribe. They will crawl through fire with broken legs if they have to." The medical alert chimed again, and Dr. Kalara felt her thorax tighten with anxiety. But it was only Nurse Pelix reminding her about scheduled appointments. As Mira left, Dr. Kalara returned her notes. She was beginning to understand that human resilience was not just biological. It was psychological, social, cultural. They had built their entire civilization around the concept that suffering could be endured if the cause was worth it, that it was both inspiring and terrifying. Her research terminal beeped with an incoming message. Dr. Forthix had sent his preliminary findings with a single note. These beings should not be possible, yet they are. I recommend we expand our study significantly. The implications for xenobiology are profound. Dr. Kalara clicked her mandibles in agreement and opened a new file for her expanded research. She titled it, Death World Survivors, Understanding Human Adaptive Resilience. She had a feeling this research would take years to complete. Humans, she was learning, were far more complex than their cheerful attitudes suggested. Dr. Kalara had started carrying a personal recording device everywhere. For the past week, she had documented every human interaction she witnessed, building a behavioral database that grew more fascinating and disturbing with each entry. Entry 47. Human technician diverts flying debris from striking Caltharian colleague, sustaining injury to own shoulder. Response to pain. Laughter and reassurance to frightened colleague. Entry 62. Human engineer volunteers to repair malfunctioning artificial gravity unit in hazardous conditions. When asked why, responds someone has to. Might as well be me. Entry 91. Human medical assistant notices a Frelian child separated from parent during crowd surge. Immediately abandons lunch break to reunite family. Missing scheduled meal entirely without complaint. The patterns were undeniable. Humans consistently place themselves in harm's way to protect others. They volunteered for dangerous work at rates that statistically made no sense. And most strangely, they seemed to form protective attachments to other species with remarkable speed. She was reviewing her notes when Commander Nethris requested a meeting. The avian leader's feathers were ruffled with concern when Dr. Kalara entered her office. I need your medical expertise on a personnel matter, Commander Nethris said, gesturing to a datapad with one taloned wing. I am reviewing station safety protocols, and the data is concerning. Humans comprise 12% of our crew, but account for 87% of emergency response deployments. Dr. Kalara clicked her mandibles. I am aware. I have been researching this phenomenon. Is it a compulsion? Commander Nethris asked. Some psychological defect that draws them toward danger? Should we be restricting human access to hazardous assignments? No, Dr. Kalara said firmly, surprising herself with her certainty. It is not a defect. It is how they evolved to survive. Humans protect their communities instinctively. They have extended that instinct to include all of us. Commander Nethris's head tilted in the avian expression of confusion. They consider the entire station their community? We are not even the same species. I do not believe they see it that way, Dr. Kalara said. To humans, anyone who works alongside them becomes part of their pack. I have observed this repeatedly. She pulled up footage from the coolant incident. Lucy carrying unconscious aliens through toxic fumes. Owen holding a collapsing support beam while others evacuated. Neither showing hesitation or resentment, only focus on saving lives. Commander Nethris watched in silence. I accessed the historical First Contact records last night, she said quietly. There was debate in the Galactic Council about allowing humans into space. They scored extremely high on risk tolerance and what the psychologists called self-sacrificial behavior. Some council members argued this made them dangerous. Dangerous to threats, Dr. Kalara corrected. Not to innocents. The council also noted their exceptional empathy scores. Commander Nethris continued. Humans tested higher than any known species for cross-cultural cooperation and protective instinct. They approve human integration because someone pointed out that beings willing to die for strangers might make exceptional peacekeepers. Dr. Kalara felt a strange warmth in her thorax. Pride, perhaps, though for what she was not certain. These were not her people, yet she found herself defending them with passion. That evening, she sought out elderly aliens who remembered humanity's first steps into galactic society. She found an old Vinthrani male in the station's gardens, his exoskeleton dulled with age. "You wish to hear about the humans?" he asked, his voice raspy. "I was there when they first arrived. Nervous, excited creatures. So young compared to our civilizations. What was your impression?" Dr. Kalara asked. The old Vinthrani was quiet for a moment. "There was an accident during the welcome ceremony. A shuttle malfunction. It was going to crash into a crowd of dignitaries. Everyone froze. Certain we were about to witness a massacre." He paused, his antennae trembling with the memory. A human female, barely into adulthood, ran forward. She threw herself against a structural support that was collapsing, held it with her own body while others escaped. The support crushed her spine. She was paralyzed from the waist down. Dr. Kalara felt her thorax constrict. She sacrificed her mobility for strangers? "We asked her why," the old Vinthrani said. Why would she destroy her own body for beings she had just met? She looked confused by the question. She said someone had to, and she was closest, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. Did she recover? Human medicine repaired her spine eventually. She works as an ambassador now, still serving others. He looked at Dr. Kalara with ancient eyes. That is when I understood. Humans do not calculate risk versus reward the way we do. They calculate whether someone needs help. If the answer is yes, they act. Dr. Kalara thanked him and continued her research. She interviewed more species, collecting stories. A Perothian who had been pulled from a burning shuttle by a human who suffered severe burns in the process. A Keltharian child who had been lost in a service tunnel, found and carried to safety by a human maintenance worker who missed an entire shift to search. Every story followed the same pattern. Humans saw need, humans responded, humans endured consequences without complaint. She was in her office compiling her findings when the station-wide alert activated. Her datapad lit up with an emergency broadcast from Station Command. "Attention all personnel. Radiation storm approaching station trajectory. Class 7 solar event. Evacuation protocols initiated." Dr. Kalara's heart sank. Class 7 storms were catastrophic, but stations had protocols. They would shelter in the reinforced core, wait out. Then the second message came through. Priority alert. Refugee vessel Echo Delta requesting emergency assistance. Engine failure. Shields compromised. 300 passengers aboard. Cannot outrun radiation storm. Calculating rescue feasibility. Dr. Kalara pulled up the data. The radiation levels would be lethal. Any rescue attempt would expose the team to doses far beyond safe limits. Time to reach the refugee ship, extract passengers, and return would require 40 minutes minimum to in that radiation field. Life expectancy was 15 minutes. She watched her screen, waiting for Station Command's decision. The announcement came 2 minutes later from Commander Nethris, her voice tight with emotion. Rescue deemed impossible with current protocols. Beginning station shelter procedures. Then another voice came through the command channel. Owen's voice, calm and steady. "Commander, this is Maintenance Base 7. We have 13 volunteers ready to attempt rescue. We are human. We can handle higher radiation exposure than standard protocols allow. Request permission to launch." Dr. Kalara's antennae shot straight up. She activated her communicator, but Lucy's voice came through before she could speak. "Doc, we know the risks. We have better odds than anyone else, and there are kids on that refugee ship. We have to try." Dr. Kalara pulled up the medical data on radiation exposure. Even for humans, the numbers were brutal. They might complete the rescue, but the cellular damage would be catastrophic. They might die saving strangers. Just another Tuesday. The medical bay had transformed into a war room. Dr. Kalara stood before a massive holographic display showing 13 human biosigns, each one a fragile spark of life about to fly directly into death itself. Nurse Pellix trembled beside her, his skin cycling through every shade of fear. Dr. Forthix's gaseous form swirled anxiously in his containment suit. "This is suicide," Dr. Forthix stated. The radiation exposure will destroy their cellular structures. Even human resilience has limits. Dr. Kalara watched the human shuttle launch from the maintenance bay, a tiny spark of defiance against the approaching storm. I cannot stop them. I tried. She had tried. She had called Owen directly, explained the medical certainty of catastrophic damage. He had listened patiently, thanked her for the information, and continued his pre-flight check. There are kids on that ship, Doc, he had said simply. Same age as my niece back on Earth. Can't just leave them. Now she watched their vital signs as they flew into hell itself. The radiation counter on her display climbed steadily. Green zone, yellow zone, orange. The numbers kept rising. The human team reached the refugee vessel and began emergency docking procedures. Dr. Kalara could see the cellular damage beginning, radiation tearing through their DNA at the molecular level. Their bodies fought back with their aggressive repair mechanisms, but it was like trying to bail out a sinking ship with a teaspoon. They should be unconscious, Nurse Pellix whispered. These readings indicate system failure. Yet the humans continued working. They transferred passengers in groups, prioritizing younglings and injured first. Their movements remained steady, even as their cells screamed distress signals that should have shut down all higher brain function. Lucy manually repaired a jammed docking clamp while exposed to direct radiation. Dr. Kalara watched her muscle tissue break down and rebuild in real time, a biological war happening at speeds that should be impossible. Owen rerouted power from the shuttle's life support systems to strengthen the shields protecting the refugees. His own environmental readings dropped into critical ranges. He was suffocating himself to protect beings he had never met. What? Dr. Forthix asked, his voice barely audible. Why are they doing this? Dr. Kalara had no scientific answer. Only the truth she had learned through weeks of observation. Because they believe some things are worth dying for. 40 minutes. Every single human should have been dead 15 minutes ago. Yet they completed the transfer, secured all 300 refugees, and began the return journey. Their biosigns were failing, dropping into ranges that indicated imminent death, but their hands stayed steady on the controls. Commander Nethrus's voice crackled through the communication system. Shuttle Echo 7. Your radiation exposure is critical. Abandon ship and use escape pods. Owen's response was strained but firm. Negative, Commander. Escape pods can't handle this radiation field. The shuttle shields give everyone better odds. We are maintaining course. Dr. Kalara enlarged the display, showing Owen's vital signs. His body was dying, cell by cell, system by system. Yet his brain activity showed focus and determination that bordered on superhuman. No, she corrected herself. This was exactly human. This was what they were. The shuttle entered the station's emergency hangar with minimal control, scraping against the docking bay walls before coming to a shuddering stop. Dr. Kalara and her medical team rushed forward as the hatches opened. The refugees stumbled out first, terrified but alive. Younglings clutched their parents. Elderly beings wept with relief. 300 lives saved. Then the human crew emerged. Owen was the last one out, making sure every refugee was safe before he allowed himself to move. His skin showed radiation burns, red and blistering. His eyes were bloodshot, his movements unsteady. Blood trickled from his nose, a sign of internal damage. Dr. Kalara scanned him immediately. The readings were horrifying. Massive cellular damage across all systems. Organ stress. DNA destruction. By every medical standard she knew, he should be dead. Owen met her eyes and smiled. That impossible human smile that defied death itself. Then he collapsed. For 3 weeks, Dr. Kalara and her team worked miracles. 13 humans hovered between life and death, while the station's best medical minds fought to save them. The radiation damage was extensive, requiring cellular regeneration treatments, genetic repair, organ support. But humans, Dr. Kalara learned, were stubborn about dying. Their bodies fought alongside the medical treatments with ferocity that amazed even veteran physicians. Slowly, impossibly, they healed. When Owen finally woke, Dr. Kalara was there. His eyes opened slowly, focusing on her with effort. "The refugees?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "All safe," Dr. Kalara assured him. "Thanks to you and your team." Owen nodded weakly and closed his eyes again. "Good." 3 weeks later, Owen returned for his follow-up examination. He moved carefully, still healing, but his smile was genuine. Scars marked his skin, permanent reminders of radiation burns, but he seemed unbothered by them. "How do you feel?" Dr. Kalara asked, running her scanners over him. "Sore," Owen admitted, "but alive. We all are. That's what matters." Dr. Kalara set down her scanner and looked at him directly. "Mr. Briggs, I need to ask you something. When your body was shutting down, when you should have been unconscious, how did you keep going?" Owen thought about it, his expression becoming distant. "There were these kids on that refugee ship. Little ones, maybe 5 or 6 years old. Different species, but they had the same scared eyes I saw on my niece when she got lost at a fair once." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "I kept thinking, what if nobody came for them? What if they died because we decided it was too dangerous? Could I live with that?" "So you risked death instead," Dr. Kalara said. "It wasn't really a choice, Doc," Owen said quietly. "Not for me. Not for any of us. Those kids needed help. We could provide it. Everything else was just details to work through." Dr. Kalara felt something shift in her understanding. Humans did not calculate heroism. They simply saw a need and acted, consequences be damned. It was not bravery in the way other species understood it. It was something deeper, more fundamental to their nature. "You are cleared for duty," she said, finishing her examination, "though I strongly recommend light duty for another month." Owen stood, stretching carefully. "Thanks, document, for everything. You saved our lives." "You saved 300 lives," Dr. Kalara countered. "I merely ensured you survived the experience." Owen paused at the door, then turned back. "Hey, Doc, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Did you think we were crazy? Going out there when the math said we would die?" Dr. Kalara considered her answer carefully. "I thought you were impossible. I still do. But I am learning that humans specialize in the impossible." Owen grinned. Just another Tuesday. After he left, Dr. Kalara returned to her research. The medical journal was nearly complete, but she added one final section. "Personal observations, unprofessional perhaps, but true," she wrote. "Humans are not fearless. They feel fear as acutely as any species. But they have mastered the art of acting despite fear, of enduring despite pain, of sacrificing despite the cost. They are death worlders who chose to become guardians. The galaxy is safer for their presence, one impossible rescue at a time." On her desk sat a drawing, given to her by one of the refugee younglings. Crude crayon figures holding hands, humans and aliens together. The words written in careful lettering. "Thank you for being brave." Dr. Kalara looked at it every day, this simple expression of gratitude from a child who would have died without human intervention. It reminded her why her research mattered, why understanding these impossible beings was so important. Somewhere on the station, Owen was already back at work, probably finding new ways to risk his life for others. Lucy was likely volunteering for another dangerous assignment. 13 humans who should have died were instead living, laughing, protecting. Just another Tuesday on Station Harmony. 7. Dr. Kalara clicked her mandibles in what might have been a smile and returned to her work. She had humans to understand, and infinity was not enough time to fully comprehend beings who made the impossible look routine.